the dog is influenced by someone else, and it's a very short period before, you know, the dog will just start screwing up again. Just set her up. You know, when she's doing it, set her up and make sure to get your timing so that, yeah, you could see her coming. If you got the baby monitor, see her coming off that thing, whatever she's on, and go in there, no, and real harsh. If you're, I think you're still using the leash with her, so just make sure and put the leash back on her so that you could grab the leash and sort of have this attitude as you're spinning her back up onto the place. No. Also, when you're setting her up for this, you're gonna figure out a way that you could see her. And as she's coming down, remember, your timing has to be really spot on. As you see the foot come down and it hits the floor, that is when you start tapping the e-collar. Tap, and be tapping it, and make sure it's real low, but be tapping it, because if it's too high, she can't function. So put it on something ridiculously low that will annoy her, like 1 or 2, something like that. Just enough to be annoying, but she can still function. Tap, and you give her pressure, meaning you keep tapping until she gets back up on the place target. Dude, you know I'm a retard when it comes to technology. And I'm missing a remote, so I used the pager-only remote and married it to a mini educator, and then when you hit the vibrate button, the mini educator beeps. What's up with that? Will a mini educator beep? I didn't know that it had a beep function. Jesus. Did you know this? Tell me you did not know that a mini educator could beep. I didn't know this. Here I have a problem. This is a, like, mudroom, I call it. This was just stuff stored out here, a bunch of insulation. It's never been utilized for anything, so I want to do something with it. It's a lot of space. I don't know if I put up this insulation. I don't remember. It was probably 10 or 11 years ago, or if that would have been 13 years ago, or if this was here when I bought the place. I can't remember. But so I'm in here and I'm like, well, that looks like shit. And a mouse had ripped away some of the insulation, so I start pulling it back to see what's underneath it. I have all this condensation here. And I have a new roof. This is not coming from the roof. This is like condensation. I think that it's comparable to the windows, and it's like because of heat exchange, like temperature exchange. I think that that's due to condensation. I don't know what else it would be. It's like the outside of this is siding. I have an overhang here, so it's like that wall's way back there. Doesn't really make any sense. Like it'll rain and this wall doesn't even get wet. And as far as like it leaking from the tin roof, no, it's not the tin roof because the seam is way over on that side. I don't get it. It's not from the tin roof. So I don't know what else it would be. Like why would this be wet there? It makes no sense. It's definitely not coming from the roof. I got a new roof on. This looks like it's been like this for a while. My windows have a lot of condensation on them. This building has a problem with humidity, especially in the basement. So now I'm going to rip the insulation off and just take it from there. But it's definitely a problem. That's soaked. That's soaked. And this might not have been going on that long. This building didn't have heat until recently. So, I'm looking at 2 years of this due to like it being warm in here and cold outside. So that's what I'm thinking. It's not leaking. It's not leaking. There's not snow on the other side of this. There's snow on the ground, but not this high. I don't know. It's not my roof. It is not my roof. And that's cold. That's real cold. I don't get it. sort of damp. See what I mean? It's like this is wet, this is dry right here. So it's not coming from the roof. It's definitely not coming from the roof. But that's not good. This is totally wet. I have a blower on it. I have this blower that I use in the basement during the summer, and it has a duct. I just took the duct off of it, and I'm gonna see if I can dry this wall out. You know, what else am I gonna do? The one thing that I will say that is different about this back wall than every other wall on this house is that this is the only part of the house that I did not put rubber up against it. I have 3 feet of rubber around the whole house, and I dug a trench, so all the water that comes off of my house, any water that comes off my house, is going to the road. It works great, but I did not use rubber back here, and it looks like the water is sort of traveling up. This area has a real high water table, and we get water all the time. There's always water in the sump pit, but not on the floor, since some things were changed. Like they did something to the creek about 8 years ago, and I haven't had too much of a problem. But this, I think I'm going to do the same thing that I did around the other part of the house, which is buy rubber and dig a trench. I don't even think I need a trench because no water comes off the roof here. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like it doesn't come off here, but we get so much rain and the ground is always so wet. I'm thinking maybe that gets wet. Like, I don't know. What the fuck? This doesn't make any sense. Like it gets wet and then travels up. Like maybe if I had rubber, and I'll bring the rubber up to, this is what I did on the other parts of the house, is I brought the rubber up to about, if that's the ground, I have about, 10 inches of rubber up on the house, like attached to the house, and then it slopes down. So it just, it looks like it's condensation. It looks like the fan is starting to dry this out. But for years, it was so cold that I would do anything to stay warm, anything. It was freezing. I don't know how they did it way back when. This house is from like 1860 or something. Officially 1880. Like I'm sure the stable looks older. It might even be a whole lot older. I don't know. But maybe I put that up, and maybe it was a mistake, and now that I got heat, it kind of keeps it cold in some areas. I don't know. Dry it out. I'm gonna bleach it, dry it out. It doesn't seem totally rotten. So it isn't completely rotten, and I've used this product before, and that's like an epoxy resin that you can put on wood that has started to rot. You can put it on flat rotten wood. It soaks in and makes it real tough. It makes it harder than the wood itself. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, because to like replace that, and it isn't. It's wet. It's got some mold on it. I'll hydrogen peroxide, dry it all out, and then I'll epoxy it. It's totally drying out. This has been only a couple of hours, and it's already looking drier. And about an hour and a half ago, I sprayed it down with white vinegar. It was the only thing that I had, but I figured if it's going to be drying out, I don't want the mold spores blowing all around. 4 hours later, it's dry. It's pretty much dry. I'm not gonna do anything to it for a day or so. Let it dry out some more. Cover it. Probably insulate. Then cover it. That's the problem here. Is I have all this like insulation by it, and then there's insulation was just kind of superficially on it. Some of it was cold. Some of it wasn't. No airflow. It's a real problem. It'll be fine. I'm glad I saw that, though. I'm not going to have to do anything to it. Just dry it out real good. I think the vinegar took care of any mold. you know what? I'll do something else. I don't want to deal with mold. I'll at least bleach it before I cover it. This is the next day. It still hasn't been 24 hours. It's totally dry. There's no problems here. I don't think that I'm going to have to use epoxy, but I might. If I find anything rotten, I might get some bleach or hydrogen peroxide, make sure all the mold is gone. But I did use straight white vinegar on it. That should do it. That changes the pH, and mold can't grow like that. So if you change the pH, mold and yeast and those kind of things, they can't grow on stuff. So that will kill mold, but I want to make sure it's dead because I'm going to seal this up. Now what I'm going to do before I seal it up, I'm going to insulate again. But the difference is, instead it was open, it was left open. So there was like this was kept cold. No heat could really get to it, but then at the sides hot air could go in. So anytime you have that hot air and cold, it'll make things sweat. Like you see that in the basement on your pipes and stuff. That's why you got to insulate the pipes, but you're going to have a problem. So I'll use foam. I'll foam this up real good, and then I'm not going to leave it open right away. I'm going to seal it up with some plywood, and then once it's sealed up, then I'll go over the top of the plywood using the old tongue and groove wood that I have from the basement. It's an issue that your house has to be able to breathe. I don't think that my house can breathe because in most cases in this house, there's so many layers. I've been taking layers down. Like it was like in the main part of the house, it was like they were trying to stay warm. It's clear. So they would even like use newspaper to like keep wind from blowing in cracks and stuff. Then put a layer of like paneling up, whatever they were using. Early on, they were using really nice tongue and groove wood, and I have it all. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So that's what I'm going to use to cover this up. But first, insulate, plywood, cover it all up. Like I've already done this on this side, on the other side of this room. I've already done it over here. I had the same problem over here. It was always wet. I couldn't figure out why it was like wet. Same thing. It was just done real shitty. It was sort of open. So there was always like cold and then hot, and then it was partially insulated but not sealed up. It was a fucking bummer. Here's some of the wood that I have from the basement. This stuff is like 2 inches thick. It's tongue and groove. It's really sweet. I took it out of the basement. I dealt with it. I didn't just take it out of the basement. In most cases, I either bleached it. I bleached it and used hydrogen peroxide. It was in such like a wet area. I didn't want to, be spreading any mold spores. So I took care of it that way. Now, when I put it up, I might run a sander over it real quick, like an orbital sander, something like that. Just real fast, rough it up, and maybe use a stain or something like that. I'll seal it. But I want it rough looking like this. But this, if I was gonna, I also had, this is from the kitchen. I got so much of this. I've priced wood like this old tongue and groove wood. This is like thousands of dollars worth of wood. People buy this stuff. Like there's places that'll buy it from you. There's a place in Brooklyn that'll buy this from me. There's no way. I'm just going to use it. I have more of it. I have more of it over here that I'm going to take down. Like this is an ancient part of my house. This is inside the mudroom, but this part of my building, it was added on to. Like it was the front part of my house is like a normal house that was probably built in 1890, but this is older, and I believe that this was part of a stable or a barn, something like that. Like they built the house onto the stable or the barn, which sort of makes sense because you wouldn't have a car. It'd be like your garage. So I'm sure that they kept a horse out here or something. Like all this wood, this is all mine. I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna put it someplace else. It's beautiful. The finish is great. This doesn't really have any mold problem. I don't have to do anything to it. I've checked this building for lead paint. This building was like, they didn't do a lot of that. There wasn't any lead paint because, you know, it was just, I don't think they had the money to be spending on paint. Paint that they were using, it seemed like it was milk paint, or I think it's called Caine or something like that. There's some kind of paint that they would use. They'd mix up themselves. I think that's what was used most of the time. This is not, you know, an expensive house. This isn't like, if you go 10 miles away, Watkins Glen, right by the lake, there's mansions there that are from, you know, 1790 and shit like that. But it'd be 10 miles away from Watkins Glen. Why would you even be living out here is my question. There would be nothing even close. Maybe you live out here because you're a trapper, I guess farms. I don't know. I can't really see why anybody would be living out here. Even nowadays. Why would you want to live in Beaver Dams? Besides it being the Sasquatch hotspot of the world, a paranormal hotspot, I can't really understand why anybody would want to live in Beaver Dams. Using food to train your dog is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not necessary. It makes you look like a resource for snacks. It conditions the dog to be excited. It makes them unstable around food. It's such a mistake, and we have an army of dog trainers out here that's all they can do. If they don't have a fanny pack, they can't train a dog. I want to make some mead. I'm also making root beer. But I'll make mead, and it's very easy to make. It's 1 pound of honey to 1 gallon of water. And all you have to do is put the yeast in there, cap the bottles, and that's it. It's not going to produce, that's not enough to produce anything that's ever going to get you drunk or anything. It's just enough to make it effervescent. That's it. So I was thinking, if I was going to make mead, I could also try and flavor the mead. I like licorice. I have a lot of licorice because I'm going to make root beer, and I also have star anise. So I'm going to take the water, the gallon, and I'm going to put it in a crock pot with just some licorice and some star anise licorice root, and then use that water to make the mead and see if I can come up with like a licorice flavored mead. Down the street this way, there's a guy that sells honey. So I'm going to go to Dandy. I got to get some milk. And I'm also going to see if he has honey out. And the reason why I think he has honey out is because I've seen it in the dead of winter. Does honey not freeze? That's what I'm thinking. Maybe it has too much sugar. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it does freeze. It's always there. If it's there, then honey doesn't freeze. This government shutdown, it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't. A bill's already passed the Senate. It has. And the House and the Senate, like, it's a larger swath of they represent us, the whole country, and every area of the country. So it's a better depiction of what the American population wants. And they'd already passed something. So what's the problem, Trump? See, it's not good enough for Trump because Trump wants to keep saying something about the wall. And the wall is pointless. We don't need a wall. There's walls up that could be repaired. There's walls. Do you understand? We don't need a wall going into the desert where nobody is because that would have to be monitored anyway. You can't have a fence out there in the middle of the desert and not monitor it, so they need to monitor that anyway. So it makes no sense to spend all this money putting a wall up in the middle of a desert. We already have walls up in places strategically, and they work. They work. But let me tell you something about a wall, too. You can fly over a wall with a drone that's carrying drugs. This thing about drugs is nonsense. Most of the drugs come through legal ports. So what's he bring that up for? The whole thing is just nonsense, and it's perpetrated by Trump. A bill is already passed. What's the problem? What's the problem? This is what the American people don't want, a wall. And besides, to have a wall, sea to sea, isn't going to cost 5.6 billion, okay? It would cost more like 50 to 100 billion. So what's this 5.6 billion that he wants? Pence already went in there and was asking for 2.5 billion or something. No, that's not enough. See, it's just ridiculous. The guy can't negotiate anything. He's not a negotiator. He's just some rich dude. He's never sweat a day in his life. He's never worked. He doesn't understand what it's like to be worrying about a fucking gas bill or a water bill or your car payment. He doesn't, or your kids need something. He doesn't understand this. So he doesn't care. He doesn't care. A bill has already passed that was fine. And then he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. He just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because of Laura Ingraham and Rush Limbaugh, whatever they say. It's like he's Putin's puppet, and he's also Laura Ingraham's puppet. And, you know, Sean Hannity, they control this guy. Oh, he's real tough. Listen, let me tell you something. Because somebody says strong and strongly and words like that repeatedly doesn't mean that they're strong, okay? That means that they're weak, and they're trying to convince people that are suggestible that they're strong. He's not strong. He's not strongly. He's not overly intelligent. He isn't. Anybody that claims that they're a genius, what is he, a stable genius? That's what he's claiming. He's claiming he's stable and he's a genius. He's not stable. You think he's stable? He's the most wishy-washy person I have ever seen that will lie about anything. This shutdown is due to Donald Trump. And it's clear he doesn't care. He doesn't. He doesn't care about any of us. I'm just, listen, since the news last night that was in the New York Times that Trump, there was an investigation opened up in regards to Trump. And if he was an actual, is he a Russian asset? We don't know because the Mueller report isn't out. But I've been saying this the whole time. We have a president that is more than likely a Russian asset. Chippy report. Chippy's doing great. He's about to pick up the keys. He can retrieve glasses now. What else is he doing? He's casting. He's casting pretty good. He's doing all his basic commands. Sit down, well, here, heel, kennel. Some of them he does better. Some of them he still needs some work on. He's doing down real good. He's doing awesome. He's doing real good. He could do all the basic commands, but he needs to work on some of them still. He likes the kennel game a whole lot. He's starting to like casting right and left. And he's retrieving real good with the dumbbell. He can retrieve reading glasses. And we're working on him, getting him to pick up keys. And he'll probably do that tomorrow or tonight, something like that. But he's doing great on everything. Chippy. Look at little Chip. Oh, I see. He sees the Sasquatch. He really does. Look, do you see it? Do you see it? It's going into those trees. It's gone now, but it was there. He smelled it. The dogs smell him first. Look at Chippy. Look at his sweater. It says, tough and cute. Play hard. You know, it is a real problem working with Chippy, and that is the problem, is that he's so freaking cute. I'm telling you, man, you still have to tell the cute dogs no. You have to teach them no. You have to use discipline. And if you're so wrapped up into getting the oxytocin surge from the cuteness, it causes a problem for you, the person training your dog. You have to keep it real and know that it's a dog and that it's the best thing for the dog to tell it when it's making a mistake. This is a pantry off of the kitchen that I'm working on, and I got a bunch of clothes in here, and I got Remy nesting in here. I'm so proud of Solar. That's my kid. Look at him. I held the egg. Solar knows I'm his dad. This is Remy's apartment. This is like her she doesn't really, 50% of the time I'll find her here. But that's like where I'll be in the other room. Oh, okay. I'll be in the other room, and she'll be in here. Like she's not as clingy. Well, she's still pretty clingy, aren't you, Remy? It's all right. It's all right, Remy. Her place is pretty sweet. She's on some socks. There's a couple shirts over here, so there's not a lot of space. So like Hemiwinkle, he can't come down here and take our apartment. I'd get involved. I'll back Remy up. She knows it. I won't back up any of the other pigeons. They got their own deal. But I help Rem, right? That's right. Remy's my favorite. Don't tell anybody. Remy knows it. Don't you, Remy? Remy's freaking awesome. Look at her. Love this bird. I have solar because of her. I couldn't hold the egg that long. She sat on the egg for most of the time. The most I ever did it was 5 hours in one day. But I did hold the egg every day, didn't I, Remy? Yeah, you were better than me. That's for sure. It was amazing. She when Solar was hatched, when he hatched, like he could have fit in a spoon. I'm not kidding, man. He would fit in a spoon. He was so small. I'm watching Remy deal with this little tiny, very tiny bird. It was amazing. She took her beak and was like massaging his little wing and stuff. Weren't you, Remy? She knew what she was doing. Remy, you're a good bird. You're awesome, man. Told Remy I ordered her some more vitamins. She needs to quit trying to eat hamburger and stuff like that. It's very bad, Remy. She's like a raven. You're not supposed to do that, Remy. Rem. So there was insulation up here on these rafters, so I pulled that down too, and I was having the same issue with. Part of it was being kept real cold, right? Because air wasn't getting to it, and air was getting to another part of it, so it was causing condensation, hot, cold. So I took that off. I just sprayed this with, what am I using, white vinegar. Still dripping. It's dripping the white vinegar, but it was real wet. Since I took it off of this, there's no problems here. It has to do with that. It has to do with heat or hot and cold mixing, causing condensation, and there being no airflow. So I'm gonna take the insulation's off this. I got a little bit more up here to take off. It is weird if the insulation was like totally tight like this. It was real small. This one's real small, so it was real tight and didn't fit. No condensation, not a problem. But if there's airflow going in, it just totally got wet. Nothing needs to be replaced. It's all, I guess it hasn't been going on that long. This house didn't have heat for a while, so it was just cold. I did have water problems in here. I had a leaking roof. I don't have a leaking roof anymore. But I still have a lot of humidity problems in this house because of my basement. Man, 3 inches underneath the concrete, I have water. So I'm essentially sitting on top of a lake. That's what it's like. It's like I live on top of I live in a boathouse. It's very similar to that. So my main thing that I've been working on for since last spring has been getting the water issues with this house under control. I've dug trenches around the house. I've lined the house with rubber to get all the water away. But I'm never going to be able to get rid of all the water that is right below me. So it becomes an issue of airflow. And I'm going to take care of that starting now. You buy a house like this that's super old. I don't think I did this for some reason. I would have not insulated out here.